Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our weekly Parsha Shiur. This week we are studying Parsha Vayigash. That dramatic moment when Yosef reveals himself to his brothers after all they've been through, after all Yosef has put them through. The Torah describes it as a moment in which Yosef can no longer contain himself. He shouts, Yosef calls out, Hoitziu kol ishmei alai, remove every man from here, remove everybody, and nobody else was present, the Torah says, when Yosef revealed his own identity to his brothers. If you have a Chumash in front of you, we're studying Parsha Vayigash, Perek Memhei, I believe. Yes, Perek Memhei, chapter 45, from the beginning. V'lo yochol Yosef li'isapek, Yosef can no longer contain himself. L'choil hanitzavim alav, in the presence of all those who are standing there in front of him. Vayikra, and Yosef calls out, Hoitziu kol ishmei alai, remove every man from here. V'lo omad ish itay b'yisvada Yosef al echav, and nobody was present when Yosef made himself known to his brothers. Vayitein es koilei b'vchi, and Yosef weeps, Yosef cries. V'yishmu Mitzrayim, and the Egyptians hear, V'yishma beis Paroi, and the house of Paro hears. V'yomer Yosef al echav, and Yosef says those famous words to his brothers. He says, Ani Yosef. He says, I am Yosef. Ha'oid avi chai. Is my father still alive? V'lo yochlu echav lanai. So the pasuk says, Yosef's brothers are unable to respond to him, ki nivhalu miponav, because they become frightened. Vayomer Yosef el echav. So Yosef continues speaking to his brothers. He tells them, Geshu no elai, please approach me. Vayigash, they approached. Vayomer, and he says, Ani Yosef achichem, I am your brother Yosef. Hashem mechartem osi Mitzrayma. You sold me into Egypt. Va'ato al tiyotzvu, Yosef says, and now don't be upset. Val yichar beinechem, let it not be negative, let it not be bad in your eyes. Ki mechartem osi, that you sold me here. Ki lemichyo shlachani elokim lefnechem. Hashem, says Yosef, has sent me before you. Lemichya, to give for life, he's referring, of course, to the food. So Yosef reveals himself to his brothers. Again, let's just review what it says here. Yosef identifies himself to his brothers. He says, Ani Yosef. He says, Oid avi chai, which simply means, is my father still alive? The brothers are unable to respond to him. They become frightened. So Yosef continues speaking. He tells them to approach him. They approach. He says, I am Yosef, your brother. You sold me to Mitzrayim. But he immediately reassures them. He tells them not to be upset or not to regret what they did for selling him into Mitzrayim. He says, on the contrary, this is a good thing. Hashem has sent me here. Hashem has sent me before you for food. So what does Yosef mean? Again, let's just start with the literal, simple meaning of what's going on here. So what does Yosef mean? It turns out that although Yosef had warned all of Egypt, and really by extension all of civilization, although Yosef had warned them at the beginning of the 7 years of plenty, that after the 7 years of plenty there will be 7 years of hunger, and although Yosef had encouraged them all to gather food during the 7 years of plenty so they would have what to eat during the 7 years of hunger, although Yosef was transparent with everybody ahead of time, and everybody else, or at least many others in Egypt, followed Yosef's words of advice. They believed him that the years of hunger were coming, and they ended up storing up food during the 7 years of plenty. Nevertheless, all of the food that anyone else stored during the 7 years of plenty, all the other food became spoiled. It rotted, and it was inedible. So the only one really left with food in the world, actually, because Egypt is the superpower of the time. Egypt is the economic superpower of the time. The only one really with the keys to the to the economy of the world is Yosef. Yosef's the only one with food. Even Paroi, Rashi writes in last week's Parsha, in Parshas Miketz, that the Egyptians complained to Paroi about Yosef. Because Yosef told them, if you want food from me, you have to give yourselves a bris. You have to circumcise yourself. Now, why did Yosef tell that to the Egyptians? That's a separate discussion. But the Egyptians went to Yosef's superior. They went to Paroi. They said, this is not fair. Why is Yosef making us do this? And Paroi basically tells them, we don't really have a choice. We have to do whatever Yosef tells us, because Yosef apparently, Paroi tells the people, Yosef apparently has powers that we don't understand. We cannot compete with him. So even though Paroi is supposed to be Yosef's superior, Paroi tells his own subjects, we can't mess with Yosef. We can't. There's nothing we can do. We have to listen to him. And they go and they circumcise themselves in order to get food from Yosef, which Yosef is a man of his word. He gives them food. So Yosef tells the brothers, look, this has all been pre-planned by Hashem. Hashem knew that there was going to be 7 years of hunger. So Hashem sent me, one of the members of our family, ahead to the land of Mitzrayim, gave me the keys to the treasure chest where all the food and all the resources are, so that you, my family, can be sustained during the years of hunger. Hashem planned the whole thing. Hashem has sent me here for food. Yosef tells his brothers. And therefore, don't be upset about the fact that you sold me. It was all Hashem's plan. Yosef actually repeats this 2 or 3 times. Yosef goes so far as to tell the brothers, it wasn't you that sent me here to Mitzrayim. It was Hashem. Yosef reassures the brothers. It takes a while till the brothers are even able to speak, are even able to physically articulate words in response to Yosef. But Yosef is apparently nothing but gracious and kind and forgiving, and seems to bear no grudge, no animosity, no resentment. There's no bitterness here. Nothing. On the contrary, Yosef is literally telling them that it's okay. He's like, don't worry about the fact that you sold me as a slave. It's all good. It was all part of Hashem's plan, and look how well it ended. Now I'm in charge of the food, and I'll take good care of you. He tells them, look, only 2 years have passed of the hunger. There's another 5 coming, and I want you all to come down to me. Yosef tells his brothers, I want you all to come down to Mitzrayim. In fact, I want you to go back and bring Yaakov back to Mitzrayim, and I'll take care of you. I'll provide you with everything. Which, by the way, is pretty much what happens. At this point, the brothers do go back. They bring Yaakov. Everybody goes down to Mitzrayim, where Yaakov ends up living the 17 final, the 17 final and best years of his life. When you read the story, not read Chas v'Shalom, when you learn the story, it seems like, at least as far as Yosef and the brothers are concerned, it seems like everything ends well. It seems like everything is just fine. Everything ends well. It seems like Yosef forgave the brothers. It seems like the brothers bear no longer any more resentment against Yosef, because Yosef is now promising to take good care of them. The family is finally reunited, everybody except for Rochel, Yosef's mother, who has already passed. Yaakov has the best 17 years of his life. Later on in the Parsha, the Torah will use the expression, Vatachi Ruach Yaakov. The spirit of Yaakov comes back to life after mourning for his deceased son for 22 years. It seems like the Torah ties all the loose ends together, and everything seems to end very well. Somebody is asking, does Yosef speak to his brothers in Ivrit? That is a good question. It's one of the commentaries say it's one of the ways that Yosef proved his identity to his brothers. Because one of the challenges the commentaries talk about is that when Yosef finally reveals himself and says, I'm Yosef, the brothers, well, they're not sure if they should believe him, right? How do we know that you're telling the truth? How do we know that you in fact are Yosef? The Medrash kind of dramatizes this. The Medrash says, like there's an interesting Medrash, parenthetically. The Medrash says that that Yosef challenged, before he revealed his identity, Yosef challenged his brothers. You see, Yehuda, in his remarks to Yosef at the beginning of the Parsha, actually said that Yosef was dead. He didn't refer to him by name. He said, V'ochiv meis, the brother of Binyamin is dead. So, all right, Rashi says Yehuda was in fear, so he allowed, in his fear, he allowed a lie a lie came out of his lips. It wasn't the truth. But anyways, the words that Yehuda uses are V'ochiv meis, that Binyamin's older brother, referring to Yosef, is dead. So the Medrash says that when Yosef had everybody removed from the room, Yosef told his brothers, you told me that Yosef is dead. I just want you to know that he's not dead. And in fact, I can speak with him whenever I want. His full name is Yosef ben Yaakov, and all I need to do is call him and he appears. And the Medrash says he starts calling, Yosef ben Yaakov, Yosef ben Yaakov. And the brothers, the Medrash says, are turning their heads in all four directions, looking to see where Yosef ben Yaakov is going to emerge from. And Yosef says to them, what are you looking around the room? It's me. But be it as it may, yes, Yosef does switch at this point in the conversation. Yosef does switch to speaking to the brothers in Hebrew. Until now, he's been speaking Egyptian, and a translator has been translating his words. And it's one of the ways that the brothers know who he is. Okay, for today, let's discuss one of the very famous questions, a question which has many answers, but one of the famous questions anyways, in this part of the Parsha, which is on the words Ha'od Avichai. So Yosef says, my father, I am Yosef. Ha'od Avichai, is my father still alive? So again, the question here is very famous and discussed by just about everybody. What did Yosef mean when he asked, is my father still alive? Yosef knew that Yaakov was still alive. He knew because he had explicitly asked the brothers, in last week's Parsha. Hasholom avichem azokin asher amartem ha'idenu choy. He had asked them in the last Parsha, is Yaakov still alive? And they had told him, yes. Sholem la'avdecho lavinu ha'idenu chai. He's still alive. So the brothers had no more current information after that than Yosef did. So he had already asked them this question in last week's Parsha. They had not been back to Eretz Yisrael in between, and they said he's still alive. Not just that he's still alive, that he's b'shalom, that he's relatively speaking in peace, that he's okay. Even worse, what was it that triggers Yosef's incentive? What is it that triggers Yosef to reveal his identity to his brothers? It was what Yehuda had said. What did Yehuda say? Yehuda said to Yosef, please take me as a slave instead of my brother Binyamin, because I took responsibility to take Binyamin back to our father. I promised to bring him back. And if we go back without Binyamin, Yaakov is going to die. Yosef hears this and he's so moved. Yosef says, oh my God, look at this. They care for their brother. They care for Yaakov. He reveals himself and he says, Ani Yosef. No. So if he says, Ani Yosef, so if this moves him to reveal himself, to reveal his identity, so what was he moved by? He was moved by Yehuda's willingness to take Binyamin's place, for Yehuda's willingness to be a slave instead of him. But what motivated Yehuda? Yehuda is very transparent about what's motivating him. Yehuda said, I took responsibility for Yaakov, for Binyamin. It wasn't actually Binyamin's welfare. It's important to understand this. When you read Yehuda's words to Yosef, Yehuda is not doing this for the sake of Binyamin. At no point does he say, I have to do this for Binyamin's sake. Not at all. What he does make clear is, number one, his own responsibility that he's taken to Yaakov, and number two, that the life of Yaakov is at stake here. So Yehuda's telling Yosef, I have to take the place of my brother Binyamin, even though Binyamin is the Ganef, not me. I have to be a slave instead of him, because we cannot go back to Eretz Yisrael without Binyamin, because if we do, Yaakov's life is in danger. Yosef is so moved by this. All right, it's a question. Exactly what was it? What point exactly that triggered Yosef? But be it as it may, Yosef is so moved by this that he gets rid of everybody and he shouts, I'm Yosef. And then he asks if his father is still alive. Like what? What do you mean? You weren't here for the past 10 minutes? The whole thing is about, this whole discussion is about protecting Yaakov's life. What did he mean when he said, again, this is a question discussed by many commentaries. So just, again, a couple of points. Number one, some commentaries say that until this point, it's true, until this point, Yosef had heard from the brothers over and over again that Yaakov was alive and that they were protecting his life, etc. But he wasn't sure if he could believe them. He wasn't sure if they were telling the truth. Look, the commentaries point out, the brothers also told him that Yosef was dead. He knew that wasn't true. So he didn't know if he could believe them when they said that Yaakov is still alive. So once he revealed his identity, once he said, look, Ani Yosef, I'm Yosef. Now he said to the brothers, okay, now that you know who I am, now that the facade is down, tell me the truth. Is it taka true? Is Yaakov still alive? This is how the Klei Yakar and others explain it. The commentary is difficult to understand because we don't find anywhere in the pasuk that the brothers respond. We don't find anywhere that the brothers say, they don't ever seem to answer the question. All the Torah says is that they got frightened. They couldn't respond to him because they got scared. Okay, but what about fine, but at some point the brothers calm down, right? Later on the Torah says, his brothers were able to speak to him, but it doesn't say anywhere that the brothers said to him, oh, by the way, when we told you our father is alive, we weren't just saying that for the sake of, an ulterior motive. We meant what we said and he's alive. The Torah doesn't tell us anywhere that they said that. So what does that mean? That the brothers did respond, but the Torah doesn't record that part of the conversation? Also difficult to understand. It's an important part of the conversation. Yosef, for the sake of the purpose of the rest of the conversation, Yosef just assumes that the father is alive. But it doesn't say anywhere at any point that the brothers actually responded. All right. Other commentaries explain that Yosef was just making small talk. He was making conversation with the brothers, right? Social etiquette. People do this all the time. We ask questions we already know the answer to. We ask questions we don't care about the answer to. It's like most of the time when people say, how are you? How are you? Good. I heard there's a Chabad speaker, teacher, presenter, very, very wise man, and fantastic Torah teacher. His name is Rabbi Sheis Taub. So he says he's got this great little anecdote about two people who meet each other in Shul on Shabbos. And one says to the other one, how are you? And the guy goes, Baruch Hashem. And you? And the guy goes, me also, Baruch Hashem. So the first guy goes, wow, you too, Baruch Hashem? It's that bad, huh? Wow. In other words, how are you? People say, how are you? We want, when we say, how are you? Most of the time, we just want people to say, good, Baruch Hashem, have a nice day, have a nice life, Hatzlacha Rabbah, move on. Try telling somebody when they ask you one time, how are you? Saying, how are you? Say, absolutely disastrous. Nobody wants to hear it, right? I got enough of my own sorrows. I don't need to hear your sorrows. So then why if we don't really want to hear the answer, so why do we say, how are you? It's called small talk. Actually, for the record, I'm not even saying there's anything necessarily wrong with it. It's a very normal part of just the way human beings interact, right? We may say, oh, how's the weather? Was macht the baba? Was macht the zayda? Small talk. Some commentaries learn this, by the way. Some commentators say Yosef said, Oido vichai. Well, he was going to ask them about their wives. He was going to ask them about their families. He was going to make conversation with them. Ani Yosef. It didn't pan out. The commentator, Abarbanel says this. It didn't pan out because the brothers couldn't respond. They were so overwhelmed with the revelation that they couldn't get anything out of their mouths. Can't make small talk with somebody if there's no conversation. So this part didn't pan out, but Yosef Yosef was asked, some commentaries learn, it wasn't really a question. It was, Yosef said it in order to ease the moment, because there was such tension and such drama here as Yosef reveals himself to his brother. So he kind of kept the conversation flowing. Some people are good at that. And by the way, we find this in other places in Torah, this concept of small talk, right? Rashi says very famously that when Hashem asked Adam Rishon in Gan Eden, where are you? Ayeko. Rashi says what, Hashem didn't know where Adam Rishon was? Hashem knew exactly where Adam Rishon was. So why is he asking him, where are you? Rashi basically gives the same answer. Rashi says, look, Hashem was about to ask him a bomb of a question. Did you eat from the Eitz Hadas when the one instruction I told you not to? So the way it works in a conversation is first you say good morning, and then you say how are you, and then you say how's the weather, and you say how you're feeling, and then you drop the bomb. Same kind of idea. So some commentaries learn here that that Yosef was sort of making this type of small talk by asking this question. There's another interpretation. There's another interpretation here, which I think is this is mind-boggling. Another interpretation as to why Yosef says, Ha'oid ovi chai. Sorry, before that, there's a very famous explanation from the Beis HaLevi. The Beis HaLevi says it was a rhetorical question. He wasn't asking, is my father still alive? He was giving them mussar. He was saying, is my father still alive? What does that mean? Well, think, says the Beis HaLevi. Take a step back here for a second. Yehuda tells Yosef, what's going on here? Context, right? Context. Yehuda tells Yosef, I cannot go back to Eretz Yisrael without Binyamin, because the pain it'll cause my father is going to cost his life. So Yosef tells the brothers, Yosef tells Yehuda, one second. Azag groise tzadik bist du. I mean, listen to how noble your words are. I mean, listen, talk about, taking the high road. Oh my God, says Yosef to Yehuda, listen to you, tzadik she'en kamoyu. You're ready to be a slave. Yeshiv no avdecha. You're ready to take Binyamin's place and be a slave in his stead. Because you're so concerned about the life of Yaakov, your father. Oh, gavaldik. Wait a second, says Yosef. I'm Yosef. You, Yehuda, it was your idea to sell me as a slave. Did my father survive that? Well, yes, he did. But Yosef's point was, where was all of this nobility? Where was all of this tzidkus? Where was all of this noble motive? Where was this care for the life of your father 22 years ago when I was languishing in a pit? We could have used some of this tzidkus back then. According to the Beis HaLevi, he wasn't asking if Yaakov is alive. He knows full well that Yaakov is alive. His point to Yehuda is, if you care so much about your father's life now, why'd you make him go through this for 22 years? After all he's been through. There's a harrowing interpretation here from the Chida. The Chida says it's based on a medrash in Bereshis. Let's take a few minutes and explain this. The medrash says, hold on to your heads. The medrash says that when Yosef excuses and forces everybody out and spends a private moment with his brothers, the medrash says that Yosef, in doing so, endangered his own life. He put his life in danger because the brothers were going to kill him. But he did it anyways, says the Medrash, because he didn't want his brothers to be embarrassed when he tells them that he's Yosef, the brother that they themselves sold into slavery and told their father he was dead. I want to say this again because the Chida puts a bomb into this medrash. So let's be clear about what the medrash says. The medrash says that Yosef revealing himself to his brothers in private, without the presence of his henchmen, of his protective team, of his army, of his people, Yosef, in doing so, endangered his own life because the brothers could have killed him, would have killed him, should have killed him. But he did so, he put himself in this position of danger because he knew he was going to tell his brothers, Ani Yosef. He knew he was going to say, Ani Yosef. He knew his brothers were going to be ashamed, and he didn't want to shame his brothers in public. That's what the Medrash says. Now, what does the Medrash mean? Why are we concerned that the brothers are going to kill him? So on a simple level, what the Medrash means is very simple. What the Medrash means is not that the brothers were going to kill him after he told them he was Yosef. The simple meaning is that the brothers were going to kill him as soon as everybody else walked out and they would be alone with Yosef. The brothers would have pounced on him and killed him. Why? Why would we assume that that's what the brothers would do? Well, actually, because that's what Yehuda told them they're going to do. You see, when Yehuda tells Yosef, I took responsibility for Binyamin. I need to bring him back to my father. Otherwise, my father's life is in danger. The whole Parsha starts with the words, Vayigash love Yehuda. Yehuda approached him. So says the Medrash, and Rashi quotes that the word Vayigash means that among other things, he approached ready to go to war. And Yehuda tells Yosef, I will appear to your common sense. I'll make the argument that I, Yehuda, am a better slave than Binyamin. I'm going to appeal to your heart. I'm going to beg you for mercy. Please have mercy on the old man. He's lost his favorite wife. One of his sons is already dead. This is all that's left. Please have mercy on his life. He appealed to his sense of justice. He's like, look, Yosef, I took responsibility for this child, for this young man. I can't go back without him. He appealed to all that. But he knew it wouldn't work. He knew Yosef might very well turn around to him and say, look, honey, this brother that you're trying to protect is a ganef. He stole my goblet. Go back and tell your father that, yes, you took responsibility for him, but it wasn't your idea for him to steal the viceroy, the most powerful man in the world's favorite cup, and put it in his bag in Egypt. Not known exactly for its democracy. Yehuda knew that his speech to Yosef might not work. And so, says the Medrash on the word Vayigash, Yehuda was absolutely transparent with Yosef. Yehuda told him, my dear friend, this is war. We're going to fight. We may all end up dead, but we're not backing down. Again, Yehuda is clear, is transparent with Yosef. According to Medrash, goes on to elaborate how they displayed their strength. The brothers displayed their strength to Yosef to show them how powerful they are. Yehuda had one of the brothers run out and see how many marketplaces there were in the city, in the capital of Mitzrayim. There were 12 marketplaces. Yehuda said, 9 brothers will destroy 9 marketplaces. I'll destroy 3. They were ready to fight. They were ready to risk everything. Says the Medrash, Yosef decides he's heard enough. Yosef decides whatever tshuva process the brothers have been through, something about what Yehuda says triggers him. Yosef says, Genug, it's time for me to tell them who I am. So what does he do? He kicks everybody out. He says, everybody leave. Wait a second, says the Medrash. Wait! These people just told you they're after blood. The moment Yosef had everybody leave. The moment Yosef had everybody leave, the brothers could have pounced on him and killed him, taken Binyamin and ran. But Yosef endangered himself anyways, so that when he did confess to his brothers, nobody else would be present, so his brothers would not be embarrassed in public. This is the simple meaning of the Medrash. The Chida, a commentary on Chumash, understands the Medrash differently. The Chida says there's a much deeper pshat in the Medrash. I'm just going to read to you 2 lines from the Chida, and I'm going to try to explain it. Isa b'chazal b'breshis rabba, we learned in the Medrash, says the Chida, she Yosef istaken shizvad alechav. Yosef endangered himself when he identified himself to his brothers. Shari bikesh, because Yosef requested, Yosef said, everybody else leave. V'hu nisha levada, and he remained alone with his brothers. V'heim rotzel lahorba, and they wanted to kill him. And yet Yosef allowed himself to be endangered this way in order not to embarrass his brothers. But then the Chida adds this. Omar koidem ani Yosef ha'oid avichai. Shalichvoid aviv heim lo yehargu. Says the Chida, don't misunderstand the Medrash. Don't misunderstand the Medrash. The Medrash doesn't just mean that the brothers could have killed Yosef before Yosef revealed himself to his brothers in order to free Binyamin. The Medrash means that even after Yosef said, Ani Yosef, even after he identified and revealed himself and told his brothers who he is, his life was still in danger. His brothers still wanted to kill him. And that was the reason why Yosef added the words, Ha'oid avichai. It wasn't, according to the Chida, again, a question that he was seeking an answer to, but it was his way of making a point. He was saying to them, it was a rhetorical question. He was saying to them, is my father still alive? Yeah? Then don't kill me. What's one thing got to do with the other? Says the Chida, Shelichvoid aviv heim lo yehargu. Yosef, the Chida says, in honor of Yaakov, their father, Yosef was sure or hoping that his brothers wouldn't kill him. Shafilu Esav lo yeharages Yaakov l'chvoid aviv. Even Esav wouldn't kill Yaakov as long as Yitzchak was alive. And this is the meaning of his words. Ani Yosef, he tells them, I'm Yosef, and I don't want you to kill me. Simu beineinechem ha'oid avichai. My father's still alive, and therefore you shouldn't kill me. He adds one more very interesting point. Which is that Yaakov had a tradition that if none of his children died during his lifetime, he would be spared Gehenna. He would be spared purgatory if none of his children died during his lifetime. So Yosef pleads with the brothers and says, please don't kill me. For if you do, you'll not only be killing me, but you'll be destining our father to go to Gehenna. Ha'oid avichai, my father is still alive, not just physically, but spiritually, as long as Yosef remains alive. What's amazing about this Chida is that the Chida is learning that the brothers' desire to kill Yosef remains. Even after the brothers look around and see that their plot to sell Yosef into slavery was foiled, and Yosef is now the most powerful man in the world. Even Paro, the king of the superpower, is telling his subjects, we have to do whatever Yosef says, otherwise only God knows what Yosef is going to do, etc. Yosef is the most powerful person in the world. And even then, Yosef is still concerned. Yosef is still in danger. Yosef is still begging and pleading with his brothers for the sake of Yaakov, please don't kill me. Apparently, Yosef is concerned, and the Chida doesn't say that he was wrong about this. Apparently, there's still legitimate concern that the brothers want to kill Yosef. It's a wild interpretation of the Chida. Apparently, whatever it was that drove the brothers to want to kill him in the first place, 22 years earlier, when they had decided to kill him and dump him in a pit, and somehow they were talked out of it, right? Reuven said, don't kill him. Yehuda said, let's sell him, etc. 22 years ago, they felt that instead of killing him, they would just sell him into a slave, sell him as a slave. But now they see that selling him into slavery didn't work. Yosef has once again risen to the top. He's the superpower. He's the most powerful person. Yosef is concerned that they're now going to continue. They're going to pick up where they left off and say, let's kill him now. And Yosef endangered himself by revealing himself to his brothers alone. And it was these three words, Ha'od Avichai, that Yosef elicits in the hope to save his own life. This is the interpretation of the Chida. Okay. The first thing that's amazing about this before that. The Chida is obviously of the opinion that the brothers felt, at least in their own minds, that they had legitimate reason for wanting to kill Yosef. Right? We discussed a couple of weeks ago that the brothers could see the future. They saw that Yosef was going to be the one who was responsible for making them all go down to Egypt, for making them all suffer in Egypt for 210 years, for all the tzoros that would befall the Jewish people in Mitzrayim. They saw prophetically that Yosef was going to be responsible for it, and they were right. Perhaps they were hoping that through selling him into slavery, they would be able to avert this decree. But now they see he's the superpower man in the superpower land. They see that their plan hasn't worked. For whatever it was that motivated them to want to kill him back then is still in effect now. Other commentaries say they felt Yosef was a roidef. And so by Yosef telling his brothers, I am Yosef, the Medrash is saying, according to the Chida, the Medrash is saying that the Medrash says Yosef is placing himself willingly in a dangerous situation. The brothers could have pounced on him and killed him. The brothers could have said, last time we got talked out of it. This time let's not make the same mistake. And massacred him on the spot. And Yosef would have had no way of defending himself because it was 1 against 10. 1 against 11. That's the reason why Yosef adds the words Ha'od Avichai. It's his only defense. He says, please don't do this as long as our father is alive. If you care so much about his life, as you obviously do, then don't do this. There's a couple of immediate observations that come to mind here. Here's observation number 1. The idea that Yosef is still concerned that his brothers may still want to kill him. Now, we don't know if the brothers still want to kill him or not because the brothers don't ever react to this. So we don't know what's going on in the brother's mind. But the Medrash is saying that this is going on in Yosef's mind. Yosef still doesn't know if his brothers want to kill him or not. And his only defense against this is, is his father still alive? Yeah, he's still alive. So don't hurt him by killing me. The idea that this is still Yosef's mindset makes the next couple of psukim unbelievable. So now this means Yosef is talking to brothers, not just who wanted to kill him 22 years ago, but in his mind who still may want to kill him now. And his only defense against them is, don't do this while our father is still alive. And that he knows their father won't live forever. The next thing Yosef says to them is, don't be upset over the fact that you sold me here. Don't be upset over the fact that you sent me down to Egypt. Don't be upset that you sold your own brother as a slave and that I ended up in Egypt. The spiritual abyss of the world, and I was falsely accused and ended up in a prison cell for 10 years. Says Yosef to his brothers, I bear no grudge against you. Everything that happened to me comes from Hashem. This is unbelievable. And he's talking, according to the Medrash, to brothers in his mind who still maybe want to kill him. And he's telling them, he's looking at his own potential murderers in the face. And he's telling them, don't be upset for selling me here. Yosef says to his brothers, you don't understand who I am. I am a shliach of Hashem. Hashem has sent me here to literally save the world, to provide everyone with food. Everyone will be eating out of my hands, including you, including your wives, your children, your loved ones, our father who you claim you're so protective over, including you yourselves who wanted to kill me 22 years ago, who sold me into slavery 22 years ago, and who maybe still want to kill me now. Hashem, said Yosef, sent me here to provide the world with food. I am doing what it is that Hashem put me here for. And for this reason, Yosef is really telling them, I'm not afraid. I fear nothing and no one. And I'll tell you that I'm Yosef, and I'll make myself vulnerable with nobody else around, knowing or thinking or believing that you might kill me. And I'll do it in order to spare you, my brothers, the shame. So that nobody should be present when they hear, when I say that I'm Yosef and you're the ones that sold me in slavery. In order not to embarrass you, I'll do this in public and risk my life. Why? Says Yosef, I'm not afraid. Shlachani lemichyo shlachani elikim. Hashem sent me here for food. Hashem has made me ruler. Hashem has made me king. Yosef fears nothing because he sees himself as an emissary of Hashem. There's another point here. There's another point. It seems, at least on the surface, that Yosef's fears are unfounded. Whatever it was that motivated the brothers to want to kill him 22 years ago, that made them make the decision to sell him into slavery, whatever plan, whatever they were trying to avoid, it seems the brothers are no longer of that opinion. They've done teshuvah in the process. Yosef has done his best to make sure of that. Apparently, Yosef isn't convinced that the brothers have actually done teshuvah, but apparently the brothers have. Why do I say this? Because if Yosef is right, and the only reason why the brothers don't kill him is because they don't want to hurt Yaakov, they would have killed him after Yaakov died. And the reality is that they don't. They never again act, at least as far as we know, they never again act with any open animosity toward him. They never again persecute him in any way. Not that they would be able to. I mean, he was the superpower of the world, but it seems, at least apparently, that Yosef's fear is unfounded. What's the truth? Again, the truth is that Yosef is the most powerful man in the world. But despite everything Yosef has been through, he's still afraid his brothers are going to kill him. And when left alone for a moment with his brothers, which he chooses to do in order to spare them shame, the first thing that comes out of his mouth after he says, I'm Yosef, is please don't kill me. This is unbelievable. I mean, think about what he's accomplished, what he's done, who he is compared to his brothers. He's actually more powerful than his brothers. At least together with his army, he's more powerful than his brothers. When his brothers hear this, they become so frightened. They're so ashamed. They can't, the brothers are so humble, they can't physically talk in his presence. And Yosef still carries in his head the fear that his brothers are going to kill him. And he's saying, Ha'oid Avichai, please don't kill me. Whenever I think of this concept, I'm always reminded of a medrash that says that after Kriyas Yamsuf, after the splitting of the sea, when the Jewish people emerged from the water and the Egyptians were drowned, were dead in the water, the medrash says that on the pasuk, the Jewish people saw the corpses of the Egyptians dead at the banks of the sea. The medrash says that Hashem miraculously caused the sea to spit out the bodies of the dead Egyptians and put them at the Jewish people's feet. Why? So that the Jewish people shouldn't fear. Perhaps the Egyptians came out of the sea from some other side and they were still going to chase them. You with me? In other words, even after the Jews had had witnessed Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, with all of the dozens of miracles involved with it, and they emerged on the other side, and even after the Egyptians were in reality dead at the bottom of the sea, the Jews were still afraid that the Egyptians are still chasing them. The Egyptians are all dead, and they're still afraid the Egyptians are going to chase them. So Hashem had to make another miracle to spit out the Egyptian dead corpses at the banks of the sea, at the feet of the Jews, so the Jewish people can see them dead, so they can stop being afraid. And only then did the Jewish people sing a song of praise to Hashem. My grandmother, may she live and be well, told me years ago, she told me a story about her grandfather. May he have a lichtike Gan Eden. She said, this is my grandmother's grandfather, came out of Russia. And he came out of Russia and he made his way eventually to Canada and settled in Montreal. And because of the religious persecution under the communist regime that they went through in Russia, and the anti-Semitism and everything that the Jewish people went through, she said, my grandmother told me that her grandfather had a terrible fear of policemen, men in uniform. Just the image, the sight of them alone would fill him with fear because, in Russia, they could pick up a Jew, lock him up, sentence him to death without trial or tribulation. So my grandmother says one day they were walking in one of the streets in Montreal, getting onto a subway, getting off a subway, going somewhere. And my great-great-grandfather, Olav Shalom, sees on the other side of the street, he sees a policeman. So he tells my grandmother, in Yiddish, of course, they're talking, he tells my grandmother, Ich seh dort geht a Kneppel. He says, I see there's a button walking over there. Now, what does that mean? So the policeman, because he was afraid to say the word policeman, even in Yiddish, he didn't, a polizeiske or whatever, he didn't want to say it in Yiddish because he was afraid they would hear. So they called them buttons because the policemen have shiny buttons on their uniform. They call them buttons. So he tells my grandmother, he says, I see buttons over there. Let's cross the street. So anyways, they cross the street and my great-grandfather's nervous and he's anxious and he's sweating a bit and he's like huffing and puffing and my grandmother, who was a young woman at the time, of course, living in Montreal, Canada, was not afraid of the Canadian police. I mean, not by a long shot. There's nothing to be afraid of. Anyways, but her grandfather's sweating. Anyways, and they walk past and they go and they turn a corner or something. And my great-great-grandfather, he's still in fear. He tells her, in Yiddish, he tells her, Ich meine, me geht uns noch. He says, I think they're following us. The trauma and the fear that he had been through, that he had gone through in Russia, was still living with him, even though in Montreal there was absolutely no reason. They had definitely not done anything or engaged in anything that they had any reason to fear the policeman. Once you go through an experience like that, the trauma and the fear doesn't leave you. It didn't disappear just because Yosef was the most powerful man in the world, just because Yosef was going to be literally the one to feed them and keep them alive for the next 5 years, apparently. It wasn't enough to rid Yosef of the fear that his brothers might kill him. What the Chida is saying is, once you are held, so to speak, victim by your own brothers, once your brothers look you in the face and tell you we're going to kill you or sell you into slavery, you can live with that fear 22 years later, even though you're the most powerful person in the world. But that's not the point. The point is that despite the fact that Yosef had that fear, and he still wasn't sure whether his brothers were going to kill him, he still didn't really see himself as a victim, didn't see himself as a victim of his brothers. And he still didn't see himself as a Nebuch case. And he still supported his brothers and his family and took care of them. And he still had 100% the correct mindset, which really is the ultimate lesson from the story. And what Yosef told his brothers is something that you and I need to live with on a daily basis. Yosef told his brothers, I went through a lot in my life. I was falsely accused. I was thrown into prison. I was almost killed. They tried to seduce me. They tried to do all sorts of things to me. Yosef said, but through it all, I always knew and believed that I was a shliach of Hashem. I was God's emissary. And look, it all came to fruition. I am the one that Hashem has put here to sustain and to provide the world. I said Yosef to his brothers, I am a real king. You see, Yosef had a dream when he was 17 years old. And in his dream, he saw himself as king. And he saw everybody else bowing down to him, the sun, the moon, the stars, the wheat, everything. Yosef said in those famous words, Yosef said, I had a dream. And the dream wasn't about Yosef's sense of ego, but the dream was Yosef's way, was Hashem's way of communicating to Yosef that he was born to do and to contribute something unique and special. And Yosef said, nothing that happens to me in life can ever break me. Even as I stand here in front of you and I still don't know if you want to kill me. I'm still afraid, even as I sit here today, the most powerful man in the world, and still afraid that if we're left alone for a moment, you will, Rahman al-Islam, murder me, your own brother, in cold blood. Even as I sit here with this, I still say to you, you know why I'm here? Because Hashem put me here, and Hashem put me here for a reason. I will fulfill the purpose for which Hashem put me here. I'll do it faithfully. I'll do it consistently. I'll do it every day. I will never falter as long as I can. And I'll never see myself as your victim. It wasn't you who sent me here. It was Hashem. I'm a leader. I'm a king. I'm a person of dignity because Hashem has made me so. And nothing that any human being can do to me will ever change that. And that, my dear friends, is the real story of Yosef. A person who went through so much sorrows, so much pain, so much rejection, so much abuse, but never forgot who he was. The dreams, and because he has this clarity, this sense of purpose, this sense of identity, no matter what he goes through in life, he holds his head high. And he tells his brothers, I'm not, this is unbelievable, tells his brothers, I'm not going to embarrass you. You may want to kill me. I'm not going to embarrass you. I'm not going to put you in a compromised position. What you choose to do with that, that's your business. I'm going to act like a king because I am a king. I'm going to be a shliach of Hashem because Hashem sent me here. And in that sense, I fear nothing. Yosef teaches us that we have to wake up every single day and tell ourselves, if we're here, it's because Hashem put us here. If we live in this time and in this place and under these circumstances and have these family members and these challenges we have to deal with, though they may be many and profound, we're here only because Hashem designed it perfectly to be this way. And Hashem says to every single Jew, Hashem tells it to us when we're awake and we're asleep. Hashem tells every single Jew, you're a king and a queen. Realize who you are and act like it. And when you do, the world will bow at your feet. Have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos.